think about 5 minutes into the second episode is when it really hit me that this show is bad. This show is going to be one of the worst shows I'm ever going to watch in my entire life. And it's not going to get any better. If anything, it's going to get worse. It's going to keep getting worse. There aren't going to be any redeeming factors. It's going to be 25 minutes of pronoun jokes and right-wing talking points masquerading as jokes, combined with some of the worst animation you're ever going to see and truly horrific sitcom writing. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the next 2 episodes of Mr. Birchum, and probably cry a little bit. But real quick, thank you all so much for the support on the video, really means a lot to me, but only 2% of you are subscribed. So if you like my content, you like my videos, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps me grow the channel and get out more videos for you guys in the future. Heart. I think the second episode has a lot less to offer the world in terms of artistic merit, and Mr. Birchum and artistic merit being even in the same conversation is crazy. I was willing to give them a second chance after watching a truly horrific pilot, which, by the way, if you haven't seen me talk about that, click here. But I was giving them a second chance, because that pilot was awful. And some people have even said, why were you judging so harshly? It's only the first episode, and my brother and or sister and or sibling in Christ, you seem to misunderstand the gravity of the situation we've got going on here. It is often the single data point that people use to determine if they're going to watch episode 2 or if they're never going to watch your show again. So it's really important to nail this first episode, or at the very least, be like a lovable mess, which is how I would describe the Parks and Rec pilot. Which, by the way, that's what my last video was, because if you watch that video and you're not watching this one, it means either you're tired of this guy yapping, or you've decided you're happy enough with your life that you don't want to be reminded of the worst show in television again, which, okay, good for you, but those of you watching, you're the real ones, and you're going to be rewarded, because episodes 2 and episodes 3 are about 10 times worse than that first episode. Episode 2, the summary, it is just Birchum and Gage getting drunk on a school day, and that's pretty much it. And they're doing it on Veterans Day, no less, and somehow they have school. And this frustrates me so much because it doesn't even make any sense. For those of you who are unaware, Veterans Day is a federal holiday in the United States, meaning that all government offices are closed. In most public schools, the vast majority of public schools have the day off. Yes, even in California, where the show is set. Get it? Because California is liberal and liberals are communist. I'm trying to practice my joke writing so that I can emulate the true craft and artisanal quality of Mr. Birchum. You'll have to let me know how I'm doing by the end of the video.
Tomorrow, Navy men, is Veterans Day. The one day of the year when even the laziest socialist lefties pay lip service to our service.
The main antagonists in this episode are a group of their doppelgangers, but they served in the army while Birchum and pals served in the Navy. And the whole point of the episode is they have to determine which group can outdrink and out-eat the other one, culminating in a confrontation at the end of the episode. So, is this a good plot? No, but let's try to examine their logic. So you know that in America, the different branches of military service have a fun little fake rivalry between each other, you know. It's like the Red Sox versus the Yankees, except if the Red Sox and Yankees had been dispatched by our government to overthrow the government in Grenada. And consequently, there's some very unfunny armed forces humor.
I thought this was a pancake place, not an old Navy.
Just because we're old, and we're in the Navy, and... Oh, I get it. It's wordplay, isn't it?
Remember, kids, if at first the audience doesn't laugh at your 3rd grade level pun, take some time to explain the joke to them. It's not like your joke isn't funny, it's that your audience is stupid. This plotline isn't horrible, you know, it's fine, especially because Birchum did serve in the Navy, but also, like, this is the second episode of the entire series. Like, this is a fine plot for, like, a random episode in season 3, if this show ever gets to that point, but, like, is this really the second impression you want us to have of Mr. Birchum and of the plot in general? Like, he is a teacher. A teacher that we're supposed to like, no less, and think that he's good at his job, and here he is cutting class on a school day to get blackout drunk. By the way, if you want to feel old, this fully happened over 2 years ago.
He started. You keep my wife's name out of your damn mouth.
Leave it to Mr. Birchum to provide those timely and relevant pop cultural references. First Angry Birds, now The Slap. It's also just so pathetic that this supposedly very edgy show meant to trigger the snowflakes is apparently too afraid to say the word fuck in quoting Will Smith directly with what happened during The Slap. Unlike me, I'm a profile of courage because I'll say it, but only if it's been after 3 minutes to please the YouTube algorithm. Mr. Carponzi, our liberal arch rival and the only person who gives half of a shit about the well-being of the students, realizes that the teachers are missing and goes to track them down at the bar. He is, justifiably a little concerned that children have been left unsupervised in an auto shop and a wood shop. The places where not only could a student die or get injured, they are probably the places where a student is most likely to die or get injured. Like, it's not as if Birchum and Gage are like English and history teachers cutting class. They are leaving their students unsupervised with heavy equipment. Someone could get pancaked. Of course, they face no consequences over this because Principal Bortles and Mr. Birchum bond over both having served in the military.
I also got a tramp stamp of a bald eagle that goes all the way down here. Look.
No, we're cool. I mean, it's good. I'm good.
Old people are gross, and making fun of their bodies is so funny. I think it's clear that Mr. Carponzi is going to be the only moral center of the show, because it's clear he's the only person who cares about the students, and from his perspective, he's seen Mr. Birchum egregiously violate school policy twice and face almost no consequences. I'm starting to think that maybe this show is just an allegory for the Bible at this point, because Mr. Birchum is basically portrayed as an untouchable Jesus who can say and do no wrong, just like actual Jesus, prior to him taking a bit of an L with that whole crucifixion deal. And, obviously minus the amount of human decency and compassion that the real-life Jesus had, but weirdly, they are both carpenters. Makes you think. So what are the rest of our lovable misfits in the cast of Mr. Birchum? Couldn't say that with a straight face. What are they up to? Well, Birchum's wife is going out to the spa with Gage's wife. Their whole plot for this episode in the spa is that Dina reveals she didn't vote for Obama, and Wendy is just racist, according to Dina. But looking at the episode, I think it's pretty clear that Wendy just is racist.
Am I the friend that you're talking about when you tell other white people, I can't be racist, I have a black friend?
Yes. I mean, no. Wait. I have black friends. You're just my blackest of my black friends.
Like, what is the humor here? What am I meant to laugh at? Does the show just think people being racist is funny? Don't answer that. Don't answer that, although I think I know what the answer is. Again, this is the problem when instead of making a show to entertain people and make people laugh, you've made the show to list off a series of right-wing talking points. You just end up with this very stilted and awkward and uncomfortable to watch and not funny at all interaction between these two characters, and then you follow up your episode, you end this plotline with some good old-fashioned anti-Asian racism. Instead of trying to make you laugh, this episode is assembling a Thanos glove of bigotry. The two Vietnamese women who've been waiting on them all day in the spa decide that they're not going to get a tip, so they want to just insult them. Which, this is how I can tell that Adam Carolla either has his head so far up his ass, the only thing he can see is shit, or he's never worked a service job a day in his life. Because these women are classic 15% Andes. Like, they're gonna tip 15%, you're gonna look at the check, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's it? And these women, they're going to think, as they're signing, they're like, I'm so generous. I'm leaving such a big tip. Look at this. I am a generous person. And you can't really control that. You can't correct their ignorance. You're just going to have to take the 15% and move on. But, maybe in a form of wish fulfillment, these women are insulting these other women for me. Except, no, they're really not. They call them ignorant drunks, but it's mostly just a 30-second monologue about how America is great and Vietnam is horrible.
Cry me a river, bitches! In Vietnam, you vote for who they tell you to, or your family start disappearing. Yeah, you're so busy arguing, you forget you're Americans, and it's already so great here. Mệt với mấy người Mỹ này quá.
And then that's it. That's how that plotline wraps up. Great job! Great job, writers at Mr. Birchum. The humor is a lot less funny and a lot more conservative, and I realize I have just repeated myself twice, haven't I?
School is so boring and
Filled with morons, I know. But you still have to go and learn multiplication, geography, and that you're a racist.
Yeah, that's just not happening. Just as there's no secret agenda to turn your kids trans, there's no secret agenda in America's schools to tell all white people that they're racist. Like, what is there even to say to this other than this is something that I have heard my racist uncle tell me at Thanksgiving, and I've had to weigh whether or not it's worth it to get into a confrontation about it, or just to continue enjoying my turkey.
I took my fall duty team to the West Coast Murder Cup Invitational Finals. We took the high ground and sniped the spawn point.
You know when someone is writing or talking about video games and you can tell they've never played any video games or they're just a complete moron? Well, that's what this is. Because in what world is a competitive esports first-person shooter tournament going to be decided by essentially spawn camping? That's not even how most competitive maps are designed! You spawn on opposite sides of the map, and why am I arguing about this? Oh my god. They only make this horrible joke, if you could call it that, because they do a callback at the end of the episode, because Birchum's group and the army group end up with a confrontation. They end up agreeing to settle their differences with a food fight. And when I heard food fight, I was like, oh, I perked up for a second. For a second, I was actually ignorant enough to have hope, like a dog who's been at the pound for 2 years. Maybe this is the time you're getting adopted. Not today, Fido, because this is one of the worst, most upsetting things I've ever seen, because they take a food fight, something that is so easy to make good, so easy to be creative with, and it's flaccid, it's lifeless, it's horrible. It's not even captivating from a narrative perspective. It is a 5 versus 5 food fight, and think about it. In what world, if you're having a 5 versus 5 food fight, would it make sense to have essentially one group wipe the floor with the other ones? No. You have it go down, you do back and forth, so that ultimately it ends with a confrontation between Birchum and the main guy, or Birchum and someone else, or someone else and someone else. Like, instead, Birchum's group just ambush them, and it's not fun at all, because there's no tension, there's no threat. Oh. And the animation overall in this episode just continues to get worse. We go from a YouTube video in 2011 to a YouTube video before 2011. They're literally using keyframe animation. I mean, what? But after winning, Mr. Birchum and co. extend an olive branch to the army group, and by the way, the main army guy, that's where Rob Riggle, an actual celebrity, that's where his voice comes into the picture. And the episode ends with them insulting Mr. Carponzi and then thanking all the veterans. Which, you know, thanks veterans, but the timing of this episode doesn't even make sense. So they could have just waited until next week to release on Memorial Day, which you would be like, okay, close enough, but instead they released the second, and okay. The comedy in this episode is mostly just things conservatives actually believe, told to you as if it were something that you should laugh at. So I can sit here and say, like, no, saying that socialists hate the military, that's not a joke. Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument, and Patrick, these horrible socialism jokes are not jokes. They're things that you actually believe that you're trying to gaslight me into thinking it's some form of comedy. I was initially optimistic about episode 3 because the plotline actually seemed like something I might see on a real show rather than an animated show I'm watching on an alt-right streaming service. Carponzi approaches Birchum saying that if Birchum makes him a set for his play, Romeo and Romeo, then Birchum will get a new set of tools for his shop. Birchum complains and says the quality of his tools are horrible, despite the fact that not 2 episodes ago, he was worshipping them creepily.
And who could forget my trusty lathe? I love your no-nonsense practicality.
Like, he clearly likes these tools in that scene. If we're discarding things that literally happened 2 episodes ago, Lord have mercy for the rest of this runtime. Anyway, there's a fairly lengthy description about Mr. Carponzi's play, Romeo and Romeo, which is a gender-fluid reimagining of the Shakespeare classic, while Gage laughs hysterically, as if it were in any way funny or in any way jokes.
Anyway, I need you to build an Americans with Disabilities Act compliant balcony. Oh, did I forget to mention that Romeo is handy capable and the other Romeo is on the spectrum?
But I'm actually kind of excited about this because we're going to have Birchum and Carponzi going at it for an entire episode. We're going to see rehearsals of this horrible play. We're going to see what Birchum thinks about it all. And no, we're not. We're not going to see any of that, actually. Because instead of focusing on an actually interesting plot, we're going to see Mr. Birchum basically spend his entire episode on replacing his table saw. Just so we're on the same page here, Adam Carolla wrote maybe the only somewhat interesting plot I've seen in 3 episodes and decided, actually, I don't like that. We're going to spend the entire episode of him getting a new table saw, and then we're going to make fun of millennials. They have to go to a new, modern tool shop because a Chinese company has destroyed the American one that they used to go to, and they really try to outdo themselves in a competition seeing how many horrible jokes can I fit in one single scene.
Are you looking for a triggerless drill?
You mean a cordless drill?
No. Our research shows this generation finds triggers to be triggering.
There's a lot of maligning about millennials, and I'm sure that Gen Z will get some of it as they go into their late 20s, 30s, 40s. And the criticisms being like, oh, millennials got participation trophies and they're always triggered and they're so soft.
This whole place is a stainless steel shrine to millennial mediocrity.
And I just want to use some logic here for a second. Gen X parents were the ones handing out those participation trophies. So if you have any issues with how millennials were raised and how they're triggered and soft, it's your own fault. And complain within your own generation. Please, I don't want to have to listen to it. But it's pretty impressive because despite being in Gen X, you could write a joke like a baby boomer.
When there's no stud, you'll hear this whistle. When it hits a stud, you'll hear this bell.
So you're saying this gadget literally has too many bells and whistles?
Great own about the situation that you yourselves created, writing a drone to have a bell and whistle sound effect, because that's a thing that I see all the time. After seeing this, Birchum gets quite upset at the service employee, which, you know, as someone who used to work in that position, you're a real piece of shit if you do that. And then this is an unironic line said by the daughter afterwards.
Epic rant, Birchum.
This is not a real show. It just isn't. It just can't be. Mr. Birchum is not a real person. These situations are not real. This show only exists so that you, the audience, can hopefully see yourself in Mr. Birchum, because you, the audience, from their perspective, are an older, middle-aged, white man who is dissatisfied with your life. And you want to live in a fantasy fairy tale world where everyone just sits there and tells you that you're right all the time about everything. So really, who needs the safe space? Got a little heated there, but this show does exist to tell conservative men that it's okay when you berate people in public because your daughter will say that it constitutes as an epic own. But this episode has not one, but two epic Birchum speeches. He goes to the keynote of the Chinese company that destroyed his American tool store and gets the crowd all riled up because the company's taking advantage of us, man. And then the crowd actually agrees with what he's saying because of course it does. The CEO agrees to replace Birchum's saw, but oh no! It's spyware from the Chinese government and they're watching them specifically to get more information about America's middle class. It's very fashionable to hate on China, especially in the American right, and then you can pretend to care about data privacy even though you don't give a rat's ass. So many American companies, including like very important ones like banks, know a lot more about you than China ever will, and we're supposed to pretend like it doesn't matter because they're American companies. Oh yeah, and Wendy works with Eddie to make TikToks and go viral with a fondoozy to sell houses for her real estate business. Episode 3 is a complete disaster, and I keep thinking it can't possibly get any worse. Of course, that is to say, if you guys keep liking and commenting and I have to keep watching more of the show, I have no doubt it will in fact get worse. Mr. Birchum seems to have completely doubled down on its utter inability to write a joke, instead saying vaguely racist statements or conservative talking points and pretending they're jokes. Just like a man wearing a wig and a dress is pretending to be a woman. See? You know, this is actually my pitch, Adam. Bring me on to the writer's room for season 2, because I think I've got your joke writing style nailed, down to a T. Please clap. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, please like, please comment. Really helps out the channel, shows my video to more people. What did you think? What do you think about Mr. Birchum? Am I wrong? Is it actually going to get a lot better? Please tell me that. I'm probably going to have to watch more of this. And if you like my content, please subscribe. 1 to 2 new videos every week. Love and appreciate you. And as always, my name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat.